Hey everyone, John here, and today I'm going to do a kind of quick tutorial on how to melt plastic using acetone. For today, I really want to thicken up the bottom of this Ever After High body neck. While I could use two-part epoxy for this mod, I really wanted to have a matching skin tone color to the plastic here, and that I really didn't want to color match the torso. A couple notes first. This method only really works for very hard plastic stuff like the torso on this body. It does not work for any kind of hard vinyl kind of body parts, such as the lower legs on here, or the hands or the forearms. You can tell if it's vinyl if you boil it in hot water, and usually it should be flexible and soft enough to move like the plastic, to move like the vinyl on a fashion doll head with rooted hair, like a Barbie doll or something. Also, I would only use this mod for hard plastic on hard plastic. I would not use it on vinyl. Each different material reacts differently to acetone, so I wouldn't know or would want to try out what would happen if I put melted hard plastic onto vinyl like the lower arms here. I wouldn't depend on this process for really extensive mods that require a lot more plastic or a lot more material, such as horns or like adding different limbs and stuff. I would only use this just to make things a bit more aesthetically pleasing, to just add a bit more plastic here or there for custom mods and stuff. The materials you need is first the doll body that you're going to modify. So I'm using an Ever After High apple white body. A donor doll with the same kind of color plastic, so the color match would be seamless. I'm using a Twilight Saga Edward body. I've used the neck for a different mod, and I've had this leftover plastic body in my box for quite a while, so yeah. You would also need a acetone proof jar. Usually I would recommend going with glass, because I don't know which kind of plastics don't react to acetone, but I did test out this particular container a few weeks ago by putting a bit of acetone in it, putting it on a acetone safe area like this foil covered plate, and then put it outside to see if it would melt or not, and it has not reacted at all to the acetone. I usually use this glass jar, but as you can see, I'm trying to acetone shrink this doll head, so yeah. You would also need acetone. I use pure acetone that I buy from the hardware store, just because nail polish remover has a lot of additives and different amounts of chemicals that I don't know if it would react or discolor the plastic used in this, so I recommend using clear acetone. You'd also need toothpicks or some other disposable tool that would not react to acetone. I use wooden toothpicks just because I don't know if a plastic spoon would react well to that. And also something to cut up your donor body plastic into little pieces. I use nail clippers, but you can also use a Dremel or a saw to cut it up into smaller pieces. So yeah, let's get started. The first thing you need to do is to cut up like just an amount of plastic, so something like this. This piece is kind of small, but the smaller the pieces, the more quickly it'll melt. So yeah, I've already cut a whole bunch of pieces, so if you can see that, yep. And then next you put it all into the jar or container that is acetone proof. And then you add a very, very small amount of acetone. As you can see, it's just enough to cover the pieces. If you add too much acetone, it'll make it too watery to work with. But if you don't add enough, it'll be too tough to actually be pliable. Then you put it into an airtight container, and then I usually put it into this kind of foil covered plate just in case something happens. And yeah, I usually just angle it like that, if you can see. I usually angle it like that just so the acetone is properly covering the plastic inside, and it doesn't just spread all around the bottom while the pieces aren't actually soaking in it. So make sure that all the pieces are submerged inside the acetone. And usually you have to leave it for about an hour or for a couple of hours, just until the plastic gets soft enough to work with. Okay, it's been about an hour, so let's see how it's going. As you can see, the acetone has completely softened all these pieces. You have to work very quickly with this, otherwise the acetone can evaporate really quickly and it can harden up without you being able to paste it onto your item. You have to be careful, some pieces haven't melted completely through, so just try to scrape off all the really gooey parts on, because they'll be easier to reshape. And yeah, I can never get this method to get a really smooth result, so I usually wait until it's been evaporated before I start modding it using sandpaper and carving it up. So yeah, that's a really big part. That's not working. Okay. So yeah, just have to scrape whatever kind of pieces they are. Okay, like that. And then you just add blobs of it until you kind of get the general shape you want. Usually, if I'm trying to build up a mod like this, I'll just try to do it in very thin layers, just so I can add more of it later. And it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for it to set just enough so you can add more. It does not look good at all, but it's working for what I need it to be. Yeah. Yeah, you can't really get much detail or effect on it. These pieces still haven't seemed like they're melted yet, so I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more acetone to them and then leave that to set for just like another half an hour to an hour. So yeah, just adding tiny amounts of it. And yeah, so I finished building up layers and layers of melted glue, and as you can see, I did not create a very smooth surface for most of it. So I'm planning to sand and file all this down until it all blends together. So I do recommend you building up just a bit more than your intended mod size, just so you can sand it back down and you have like enough plastic to work with. I personally think this would look great with this head now, just because the neck is a lot thicker. But until this entire thing sets, I can't even like do anything with it. So yeah, it is a bit soft and squishy. Even though the outside layer is actually dry to touch, I can still feel it being really soft. So you wouldn't want to carve into it and then gunk up all of your filing tools and your Dremel and anything else that you're intending to modify this body with. I let this sit and cure for 24 hours before I sand it all down and finish it off. Here is the doll's body after I sanded it down and refined the mods a lot. As you can see, since I use matching plastic, you cannot see any kind of mismatch between where I modded it and where the original body begins. And I'm so happy with how this turned out, because the head looks a lot better on this body now, the neck looks filled out, and I didn't need to paint the body to match it at all. I use a very fine grit metal file to get to get the basic shape that I really want out of the neck. Then I use a nail buffer and buffed it until it looks really smooth to the eye. And yeah, that's all you really need to do when working with this kind of mod. Thank you so much to What If Chris for requesting this tutorial, and I hope that this has been helpful in modding your own dolls. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you later.